If you love spending time in nature like I do and you're thinking of going to Iceland, then I'm sure you'll really enjoy this video. I'm going to be sharing with you 4 beautiful places which I visited recently on a short break there, and yeah, it's scenery that I've never ever seen before. So the first one is the most beautiful waterfall I have ever seen. I just couldn't believe how incredible it was. Now it's spelt, I'll put it on the screen now, but you don't pronounce it as you think you're going to pronounce it in an English way. You pronounce it Gullfoss. Please excuse me if you're Icelandic, but that was my pronunciation for it. And yeah, it was absolutely breathtaking. So Gullfoss means golden waterfall, and it's one of the most popular waterfalls to visit in Iceland, and it's not too far away from Reykjavik, which is the capital where lots of people stay when they go there on holiday. And it's actually part of a special sort of tourist trip which is called the Golden Circle, and so if you go on the Golden Circle like we did, then you'll definitely go to the waterfall. So it's about a 90-minute drive from Reykjavik itself, and well worth it is all I can say. The waterfall is actually in 2 tiers. The first one has a drop of about 11 meters, and then the second tier has a drop of about 20 meters. And what's quite unusual about it is when you think of waterfalls and going to look at them, usually you're at the base of the waterfall looking up, but not with this waterfall. You have got a great viewing space that you can go and walk along, which is above the waterfall, and you can see the 2 tiers and how the water gushes down into a ravine. So with regard to the history of how this waterfall was created, so apparently geologists think that it was formed during the last ice age, when runoff from Iceland's 2nd largest glacier flooded the landscape. This then created the river that tumbles into the ravine and creates the waterfall. So we were really fortunate, and we went on a guided tour in a minibus for the Golden Circle, and the tour guide was actually Icelandic, and he was just the font of all knowledge. He was incredible, and he told us a story about this waterfall and how we're really lucky that it still exists. And I'm going to read from my notes here to make sure I get it right, and I'm not even going to attempt to try and pronounce the Icelandic names. Basically, there was a very brave Icelandic lady, and she was the daughter of the farmer who owned the land, and in the early 20th century, he leased the land to foreign investors. I think he was actually British, the guy who was leading the actual wish to own the land, and he wanted to build a hydroelectric power station at the falls. However, the farmer's daughter used her own money to challenge him in court, and she even walked barefoot to Reykjavik, the capital, to plead her case on several occasions. The waterfall was eventually sold to the Icelandic government and became a nature reserve, and the lady became known as Iceland's first environmentalist. Now, the next 3 places which I'm going to recommend you visit in Iceland are ones that we saw on the southern tour which we did. This is a much longer day out, but well worth it. And the first place which I recommend you go to is the Black Sand Beach. Now I'm going to try and pronounce it. I think it's Reynisfjara, and it's on the south coast, and it is absolutely stunning. I've never seen a black sand beach, the first one I've seen, and apparently this one is always darker than most other black sand beaches because it's often wet, whether from the waves or the rain. It's very wet, or wetter in the south and the northern part of the island. According to National Geographic magazine, it's one of the top 20 beaches in the world, and I can certainly see why. So the black sand itself was formed from sea-worn black volcanic rock, and the beach is actually named after a Norwegian Viking called Rainier. I'm just referring to my notes here. He was apparently the first settler brave enough to come to the beach, and so that's why the name translated is Rainier's Beach. If you've been to the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, then you'll have seen very similar rock formations that there are on this beach, and these sort of hexagonal basalt columns. Now, it might be one of the most beautiful beaches I've visited, but it's also probably the most dangerous. And I just want to highlight this in case you do visit. Basically, the beach has what's called sneaker waves. So normally in the UK, when waves are coming in and out on the shore, you can sort of guess how far they're going to come, but not on this beach. So every 5 to 7 waves, there is a humongously huge wave that really comes up the beach. And yeah, you just need to be really, really, really careful to never turn your back on the sea. And the reason that there are these sneaker waves, or sleeper waves, I think they're also called, is because where the land meets the sea, there's a big drop. And also, if you look at the globe, Iceland's at the top, and there's no landmass until that water reaches Antarctica. So it's got a massive long way to go, so that's why the waves are so much stronger. So do visit, definitely, but just stand way back from the water's edge. Now, the next beautiful place I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It's a glacier, and I'll put the name up here now. And it's on the south coast, about 100 miles from Reykjavik. It's about 5 miles long and 1 mile wide, and it's one of the most easily accessible glaciers in Iceland. It was such a sight to behold, and in comparison to the loud waterfalls and the sea, it was really quite tranquil. We just walked along the side of it and took lots and lots and lots of photos, and I loved the sort of bluey tinge that the actual glacier had. And unfortunately it is receding, but it's well worth a visit. And I think some of the tours actually provide you with climbing equipment, and you can go climbing with a guide onto the glacier. So the next beautiful place which I recommend you visit is another waterfall, and it's the first one we saw on our trip. And I'm going to put the name up here, but I think you pronounce it Skoafoss. You think you're going to pronounce the G, but you don't. And it's one of the biggest waterfalls in Iceland. It's got a drop of 60 metres and a width of 25 metres. And we stood at the bottom to look at it. But you can actually go up over 300 steps onto one side of it and look down if you want to. But it was just amazing standing on the river, well, by the riverbed, and just looking up at it. And when we were there, it was just, yeah, it was so, the power was just incredible of it, the water coming over the edge of what used to be a sea cliff. I highly recommend, if you do visit this one, and you want to go really close, to wear waterproof. So I had a waterproof top and also trousers on. It was spectacular. Legend has it that apparently a Viking settler in the area hid treasure behind the waterfall, and yeah, who knows, but that's the legend that they have about this particular waterfall. With regard to distance from Reykjavik, it's about 100 miles, so roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours long, depending on the weather. So these are just 4 beautiful places which we visited in Iceland. We went in March for 4 nights and we stayed in Reykjavik, and I highly recommend booking yourself on the tours. If you'd like to know more about Iceland, I'll put links to some videos which I watched and helped me decide where we should go. And also don't forget to subscribe, because my next video will be 15 things to know about before you visit Iceland, things I wish I'd known. I'll see you then.